So she must be doing something right then. So, all right, let's finish up, if we can. Black Elk Speaks. We went through some of it before the period ended last time, and I think he was in Europe, wasn't he? He had gone to Europe, and he almost thought they died. And let's see. This is across the big water. And who does he meet? Grandmother, right? She says, I'm 67 years old, and I've seen all kinds of people. I don't know what page it is in your book, about 169, 170 in your book. But I've never seen people as beautiful as you. And he thinks that he liked grandmother England. He thought that they were really, that she was really something special. And in the next chapter, 20, he said after that was all over, the happy time, we went to Manchester, which, if you know England, that's in northern England, industrial town, and they got lost there, so they just roamed around. They found some other Lakotas, and finally they got some money to go on the Iron Road to London, and it was another guy's show called Mexican Joe. He had a show there. In any case, he went to Paris, and he found a girlfriend in Paris, funnily enough. Well, everyone finds girlfriends in Paris. That's well known. Not in those days, anyway. So he just is doing the Paris thing, and you know, apparently people in Paris. I think people in Paris are more racist now than they were then, actually. I mean, I don't think France is free of racism today. It's got real, I think if you went to France, you'd find more problems than you have in this country, actually, where racism is concerned. They've got serious issues there, and they've got soccer riots now. They've got people, fascist, skinhead people, go to soccer games and beat people up, and they've had a killing recently there, and I think they took a poll recently, something like 17% of the people feel like that. That's a lot. That's 17% of the sort of dumb people, you know, the sort of people down the scale. So when you get 17% of the sort of dumb people, you know, feeling that way, you can get a lot of violence. You can get a lot of violence, and I think that's what you're saying. So anyway, Paris back in those days was sort of like, you know, anything went. All the, for instance, after the World War I and World War II, a lot of Afro-Americans stayed in Paris. Who was that famous singer, Afro-American singer that became famous in Paris before his Bergère stayed on? Josephine Baker. You know, she just became the toast of Paris for a long time, and then she had an orphanage down in southern France and lost all her money in the end. And it's a very tragic story by the end of her time. But after World War I, you know, things were really very open in terms of acceptance of different kinds of people. And you know, she was very highly regarded. And of course, James Baldwin went there because he felt he could be freer there. So, huh? Yeah, well, there you go. Now you're getting beyond my cultured range, you know. I know Richard Wright and some of the other novelists of the 1940s and 50s and so on. A lot of them went there. But now it isn't like that anymore. And as I said, it's gotten worse instead of better. So you can see that Black Elk could have a girlfriend in Paris. And probably would get a girlfriend in Paris more likely than he would in New York or Chicago, actually. You know, given the racial temperament of the time and outlook and so on, the way people saw things. Now it would be just the opposite, as I said. But in any case, he got sick there, I think, and she took care of him and looked after him and nursed him back to health. Her and her family, I think he lived with her family. From Paris, we went into Germany, and yeah, I was sick. The next page there, what page is that in your book? Second page of chapter 20, 172, 73. And he didn't have enough money. And the girl I told you about took me home to her father and mother, you see that, and they made me well. So, you see, that's really very modern, very advanced. And this would be 1880s, maybe late 1880s, beginning of the 1890s, perhaps. And the girlfriend was sitting by me, and her mother and father and two sisters were sitting there, so they were very liberal, you see. And the roof seemed to be moving, and you see, he's in the same situation again when he was young. He's having the fever, and he remembers, and he's having his vision experience again. And the house was going around at the top and stretching upwards, and a cloud was coming as we rose, and I was on it, and it's that old cloud vision where he's riding clouds again. And I was alone on the cloud, and I could see houses far below, and I was riding over the big water, and I was going home. I love his description of visions. Whether it's all him or Neihart, I don't know. But I think those are really nice. I was right over the big water, and he flew over where he first got on a big fireboat, which was New York Harbor. I was on my way to my own country, and I was very happy now, and I could far off see the black hills in the center of the world where the spirits had taken me in my great vision. And then I was right over Pine Ridge. Any of you ever been to Pine Ridge? Well, Pine Ridge is a reservation now in western South Dakota, eastern Montana. When you get into it, you know you're there. It's another world. You get in there, and the big highway stop, the sort of you know, expensive road construction projects are gone, and you're back into another universe. It's not perhaps so enthralling, but you should go through there sometime if you travel this country. Anyway, there was a lot of trouble back there in the, what was it, in the 60s and 70s period when they had not just Black Power movement, but they had the American Indian movement, the AIM it was called. And they had an actual shootout there at around Pine Ridge. And it was all where this next episode is going to take place, where the massacre takes place. What is the name of that town that the massacre takes place at? Anyway, we will get Wounded Knee. Wounded Knee. It's all at Wounded Knee where they're doing all this demonstrating and agitating and fighting with federal agents, and there's a lot of lawsuits still going through the courts in relation to that. Well, so he was right over Pine Ridge, and it was a big camp, and he saw his father and his mother's teepee. Any of you ever feel like that? You want to go home? Just want to go home to your mom and dad? Just want to go back, and you don't want to face the world anymore, you don't want to be in the world anymore, you just want your mom and dad to take care of you. That's what's so tender about this book. You can just feel what he feels, and he wants to jump off the cloud and be with them. He doesn't want to be in this world as it is constructed. He wants to go back to his mommy and daddy, but he was sad because he could not get off. And it when I was right over the very big town again. And then it stopped over a big town, and before he knew it, he was back on the ground, and you could hear the girl's voice, same as the earlier vision, right, when he was a boy. And a doctor and a girl and her father and mother and two sisters were looking at me in a queer way. They were frightened, and so they were afraid he was going to die, obviously. And they got better. And they said, while I was sitting at breakfast, I had looked up and smiled and then fallen like dead out of my chair. I'd been dead for 3 days, just like earlier. And then what happens after that, in that chapter? How does he get home? Pahuska. Pahuska is in town. He hadn't been with Pahuska anymore. Why? Because he got lost in Manchester and he missed the train. He got hooked up with someone called, what was it, Black Joe, Indian Joe, something like that. I forget who the guy you just mentioned was. Who's Pahuska again? Custer, but not here. It's not Custer. They're both called Pahuska. Why? Because they got long hair. Yeah. It's Buffalo Bill. You say, who? Buffalo Bill? Well, Buffalo Bill is a famous name in American folklore, in case you haven't heard of him. You know, he's like Custer and Buffalo Bill, like, I mean, they just roll off the tongue, sort of like Jesse James and Billy the Kid, you know. Though I think these are more interesting people than Jesse James or Billy the Kid, frankly. You know, Custer, with all his faults, is an interesting person, and you see that Buffalo Bill is interesting. So what happens? These are real scenes. Buffalo Bill gives him money to go home. And even though he's not in the show anymore, he gives him money to go home. So that's really shows what kind of guy he is. Yeah, he's a real stand-up guy. As Bill O'Reilly would say on the O'Reilly show, he always says, "You're a stand-up guy," if you ever watched that. Everyone he likes is a stand-up guy. Anyway, they took me to the show, and he had all the people give me 3 cheers, and I told him I was sick to go home, and he said he would fix that. And he gave me a ticket of $90. That's really pretty cool. Pahuska had a strong heart. Even though he made his living originally by killing buffalo. And a policeman came and told me to get my things and took me to the Iron Road. I don't know why a policeman was doing this, but maybe he was in Buffalo Bill's employ, I don't know. And then the fire boat was back at the big country, and I was in my own country again, and we came to Rushville, which is in probably South Dakota, at the end of the railroad then, and there were no Dakotas, but there was a covered wagon with mules starting out from Pine Ridge. And all the Lakotas were there. So it is 1889, this is the year of the treaty, when the Wasechus brought more of the land. All that was between Smoky Earth and Good River. And I had been gone nearly 3 years. And knew nothing about this foolish thing until then. And my parents were in great, I went right to my mother's teepee, and my parents were a great joy to see me and cried because she was so happy. And my mother told me she dreamed one night in her sleep that I had come back on a cloud but could not stay. And I told her my vision. You believe that? You believe she saw it? Yeah, I think those things happen. Okay, so the last 2 chapters here, or last 2 or 3 chapters, are about the Battle of Wounded Knee. And if you don't know the Battle of Wounded Knee, this is a big thing for American, Indian, Native American, if you want to call it that, activists even today, who, God, I can't find my marker. I'm trying to see if this one marked. But Wounded Knee, yeah, there's a lot of ink in this one here. Let me do it down here. I'll skip it. They make a lot of issue around Wounded Knee as a symbol. And what happened at Wounded Knee? Well, we're going to read it here, but anyone want to quickly just mention what happened there? Well, there's a pretty big massacre finally that occurred there at the time. I think it was around 18. It was the last really, the last so-called massacre or confrontation or whatever, the last gasp of all these things. Recently I was watching a movie on television, maybe if you get the movie channels, you would have seen it, I think it was called, the title, it was about Geronimo, I think it was called Geronimo. Anyone seen that movie, Geronimo? Well, Geronimo is not just the name of that paratroop when they jump out of airplanes in the American Army. you know, he was a great Apache chief around the same time, and they could not subdue him. And one of the scenes in that movie is about dancing. You know, the federal troops come into the, Geronimo agrees to go back to the reservation. This is in Arizona. And the medicine men are whipping the people up into dancing, and the federal troops get nervous, and there's an exchange. And then Geronimo leaves the reservation with his people, and they try to hunt him down, but they can't. He's too evasive, or he goes down into northern Mexico. Anyway, then finally he's got, these people have families, it's not just an army he's with, and they can't really survive fighting as guerrilla fighters all the time, and they finally are cut to almost nothing, but they still can't subdue him, and finally they send him down. This is the movie thing. They send a guy down who's been friendly, and they track him down, and they make a deal with him that if he'll surrender, like the Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse and others, that, you know, no harm will come to him, and he'll only have to go to prison, because all the Anglo settlers in Arizona are really angry because there's been a lot of massacring. They want to hang him, but they make a deal that they'll just send him to St. Augustine in Florida, to a fort there, and he'll have to stay 2 or 3 years, and then he'll be able to come back to his reservation. Anyway, the deal is never kept. He goes to St. Augustine, but with his people, and they never let him come back, and he ends up in Oklahoma with whoever's left, and they never let him come back to the Apache reservation in Arizona. But it's around the same time that this is happening. So all these people are being subdued around the same time. In fact, the general there is a guy called General Crook. I know it's a funny name, but he's the one that went after Crazy Horse after the Battle of the Little Bighorn, and hunted Crazy Horse and those people. So this is all going on in the 1880s. And this one, and the Geronimo thing is the late 1880s, early 1890s. And this is the late 1880s, early 1890s. So this is the last battle, and it's all about a medicine man and the dance. Who's this medicine man here? They call him, I think, Jack Smith, don't they? I think that's his name. He comes out here, I told you last time, or earlier when we were looking at this book, when we first started with this book. Unfortunately, they've added an extra period onto us, so we've got plenty of time to cover this in my last 2 books. So I wasn't in a rush as I thought I was, because apparently, because of the last thing about Thanksgiving, I never followed whatever happened about that. Things have been changed somewhat, and we have 2 more classes after this one, so we're in pretty good shape as far as finishing our material. I was rushing, but I didn't have to. So Jack Smith, I think, is his name, and he comes from, as I told you, California. What kind of Indian is he? I don't have a pen right on the board, or I would. I thought I had a pen on the bottom of this bag here, but I guess I don't. Let's see. No pen. What kind of Indian is he? What tribe? Shadow writing. Shoshone. S-H-O-S-H-O-N-E. Shoshone. If you drive up toward Lone Pine, probably you guys only know Lone Pine from the ski resorts up there. What's that ski resort up there? It's called, I can't remember what it is. Something like that, but that's not what it's called. Anyway. Huh?
Speaker?
No, that's here. This is Lone Pine, up route, the other side of the mountains from Yellowstone.
Jackson Hole?
You guys haven't traveled much, I can see that.
Dale, which way are we going?
You know, it's where they take all the water from California from and bring it down here. They have a whole reservoir system that's piped down to Los Angeles from there. No, that's another one. This is the
Owens?
Huh?
Owens Lake? Owens Lake?
Yeah, up there. Owens Lake. That's where I used to get all the water from. But I kept the Mammoth. That's an end of the ski resort. Mammoth is this side of it's the other side of the mountains from Yellowstone. You can go into Yellowstone from the backside through, what's funny about that? You haven't been up there?
Yosemite.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Sierra Nevada. Yeah, I'm not talking about the Rocky Mountains, the Sierra Nevada. That's another range. Oh, we don't go to the Rockies. That's another universe. Yeah, Mammoth, right? Up by Lone Pine, Mammoth, and so on. That's where this guy, those are Shoshone Indians up there, where they are. And they stretch on all the way up through Nevada, up into southern Utah, and all those areas there are all Shoshone. If you drive through, get off the big superhighway with all the trucks and go over the mountains there, you'll go to all kinds of Shoshone towns up in the hills between Idaho and Nevada and Utah and Nevada. Idaho mainly, and Nevada, southern Idaho and northern Nevada. You'll come into all Shoshone reservations and all kinds of Shoshone towns. Quite interesting. They're a little bit more together than the Lone Pine, rather than the, where he's at, what's it called here? Where he goes home to. Reservation here. Huh? Pine Ridge, yeah, a little more together than Pine Ridge. So they've given away more of the Black Hills, I guess, is what the issue is in page 177. There was hunger among my people before I went away across the big water, and because the Wasatchus, according to him, didn't give us the food they promised in the Black Hills Treaty. But it was worse when I came back. My people looked pitiful. The creeks even seemed to be drying up. The Wasatchus had slaughtered all the bison. Buffalo Bill had a part in that. That's what it's called, Buffalo Bill. So, you know. Yeah, but he's not the only one. There were a lot of guys who were obviously doing that. And I just do a little noise control here. So, and that way we won't all freeze to death, too. Yeah. Let's keep the heat in here, shall we? This is the noise of the building. God, I'm going to quit shrieking. And shut us up in pens, and we've already know what that means. They shut us up in pens. This is the reservation deal, right? So, and it looked like we would starve to death, and we couldn't eat their lives. And then 3 stars came. That's General Crook, the same one who worked down with Geronimo down in Arizona, made a treaty. I think they threw him out of Arizona and put another general in there, a guy called Miles in the movie. They like Crook in Arizona, but General Miles, another one in the movies. You see that movie Geronimo on cable television, you'll recognize who these people are. So they bring him in. He's more, he breaks all his promises, and he wants to hunt Geronimo down. So this is further north. They send this 3-star Crook guy to kill us on the Rosebud. Crazy Horse whipped him and drove him back, but when he came this time without any soldiers, he whipped us and drove us back, and we were penned up and could nothing, and my power could do nothing, and my power was gone. So some people after I came back wanted me to cure a sick person. And I thought the power wouldn't come back to me, but it did. And so he started becoming a real medicine man, really curing people with whooping cough and that kind of thing. And this weird thing happened when I came home in 1889, 178. The news came to the Oglala's first. And it came to us from the Shoshones, as I told you. The Oglalas are a band of the Sioux, and the Arapahoes. The news was that out yonder in the west, California, at a place near the great mountain, Sierra Nevada, I guess he wasn't a Shoshone, he was a Paiute, according to this, a sacred man among the Paiutes, had talked to the Great Spirit in a vision. So here's more of the visionary side. The Great Vision Spirit told him, 178, how to save the Indian peoples and make the Wasichus disappear and bring back all the bison and the people who were dead, and how there would be a new earth. So I think they're mixing Christian ideas and Judeo-Christian ideas, like Ezekiel, the rising of the bones, if you've read the Old Testament, or a new earth and a new heaven from Christianity. The missionaries have worked here together with their native beliefs and come up with this new presentation that they would dance the bones back to life. Dance not only the buffalo back to life, but also the ancestors. And so on. And this is the message of this medicine man. And look on page 179, Jack Wilson, his name is, not Jack Smith, Jack Wilson. And they called him, I think they called him Wanakia, sort of like Messiah, Wanakia. I can't write it on the board because I don't have anything to write with. Wanakia. No, his name was Wovoka. But he was, they saw the Wanakia, you see, in the sentence before that. His actual name was Wovoka, but he was called the Wanakia, which is like the Messiah. Okay, we all agree on that? Okay. Yeah, well, there are a lot of words here I could ask you. Wovoka, Wanakia, Wasichus, Jack Wilson. Anyway, before that, back on the previous page, he sent out his missionaries, his apostles, 3 apostles, Good Thunder, Brave Bear, and Yellow Breast, to see, we sent them there, rather, not him to us, to see this sacred man. We sent them over to see what they thought of him. And they made a long journey, and then they came home with wonderful things to tell. And I didn't yet believe what they were talking about, but I thought maybe it was the despair that was talking. But these men were all good men. And they said they traveled far until they came to a great valley. My footnote, I guess yours too, says Mason Valley, Nevada, wherever that is. I guess it's probably near where Hangar 20-something is these days. What's that hangar that all the flying saucers land at in Nevada?
Area 51.
What?
Area 51.
Yeah, Area 51, right. I guess it's near Area 51 or something like that. Well, if you're not flying saucer buffs, you wouldn't understand that. But most people know about Area 51. Hangar 20, Area 51. Yeah. Anyway, so Mason Valley, Nevada, near the Great Mountains, before the big water, Pacific Ocean, and they saw the Wanakia, the man who makes live, the one who makes live, the resurrector, I guess, the Wanakia. And the Wasichus called him Jack Wilson. Maybe they got Wilson from Wovoka or from Wanakia, I don't know which. But he said there was another world coming, like a cloud, and would come in a whirlwind out of the west and would crush everything, which was old and dying. And in that other world there was plenty of meat, just like the old times. And in that world all the dead Indians would be alive. And all the bison that had ever been killed would be roaming around again. Paradise world. And the sacred man gave sacred red paint, 2 eagle feathers to Good Thunder. They liked the sacred red paint that's vivid for some reason. Now we're going to look at D.H. Lawrence next in Etruscan places, and there they paint the body red too. So they think of it as their red and splendid spiritual selves, their vivid life, he calls it. That's not coming from the West. The people must paint put it on their faces and dance a ghost dance. That the sacred man taught to Good Thunder, Yellow Breast, and Brave Bear, Peter, Paul, and John. Oh no, Peter, Paul, and James, I guess, of the Wanakia movement, right? Good Thunder, Yellow Breast, and Brave Bear. If they did this, they could get into this other world. When it came, the Wasichus would not be able to get in. They would all disappear. That's great religion, isn't it? It's really, it's very nice for people who lost their hope, but on the other hand, are getting back their hope a little bit like, if you like, the Elijah Muhammad material we were looking at for the Afro-American community. But I don't think Elijah Muhammad is nearly as successful as Wanakia. Wanakia really does move these Indians to tremendous lengths, so many are killed. Many are killed. And so he said to them, keep these eagle feathers, and my father will cause these to bring your people back to him. So he's the Son of God, like a Jesus figure if you want. And when I heard about the red paint, the eagle feathers, and the people, and the Great Spirit, it made me think hard. I had a great vision. And it was to bring the people back to the nation's hoop, the sacred circle. Maybe this sacred man had the same vision, he thinks, and it was going to come true, so the people would get back to the red road that he had in his dances earlier. And maybe it was not meant to do this myself, but if I helped with the power that was given me, the tree might bloom and the people might prosper. This was in my mind all winter. But I didn't know what vision the sacred man out there had seen. My father died in the first part of that winter from the bad sickness that the people had. Everything good was going away, and my younger brother and sister had died before I came home. Pretty bad. And now I was fatherless in this world, but I still had my mother. I was working in the store for the Wasichus so that I could get something for her to eat, and just kept on working and thinking about what Good Thunder, Yellow Breast, and Brave Bear had said. And the people wanted to hear more about the sacred man and the new world that was coming. So Good Thunder and Yellow Breast with two others went from Pine Ridge. And some went with them from other agencies, and he names who they are. And I kept working in the store and helping the sick people. And it was the spring of 1890, and I heard these men had all come back. And I heard the gossip that was everywhere, and the people said it really was the Son of the Great Spirit who was out there. And that when he came to the Wasichus a long time ago, they had killed him. You see, they identify him with Jesus Christ and Christianity. But he was coming to the Indians now, not to the Wasichus, and there would not be any Wasichus in the new world that would come like a cloud in a whirlwind and crush old earth that was not. So here he actually gives you the whole rationale between the ghost dance movement. This movement in American history is called the ghost dance movement, because they're dancing to bring back the ghosts according to the Anglo way of looking at it. This is the ghost dance religion and the ghost dance movement. They said this would happen after one more winter when the grasses were appearing, 1891. So you know when it's happening. This is, so every generation thinks that, what do the people now think is going to happen? Down in maybe some of these churches in around Los Angeles area here, they think that what's coming? The rapture. The rapture is coming. They're stocking in the food for it, and they're getting ready to, where are they going? Well, they're going into another dimension, another universe, another, not another world, but we're not going to be there. They're going to be there. So it's really pretty similar. You see, people have these hopes and expectations. I have to say that the Muslims have this to some extent in their war against us at the moment. You know, they have these teachers who are teaching that in the Iranian Shiite version of things, that the Imam is coming back. The Imam, I-M-A-M, that's how it's spelled. It means the standing one, literally. The one who stands before. He's coming back, and there will be some sort of apotheosis of some kind. I don't know what it is they're expecting to happen, but you're not going to be in it. That's all I can tell you. This is for them only. And so whatever's going to happen doesn't include you guys. But it's a similar idea, this appeal that coming Messianic person is going to return, and then everything is going to be good for the believers. So you see this Wanakia, they'd seen him. He could make animals talk. Once while they were with him, he made a spirit vision, and they all saw it. And they saw a big water, and beyond it was green land where all the Indians had ever lived, and the bison and the other animals. They're telling stories about Wanakia, somewhat like the New Testament, Jesus stories. And the Wanakia, they said, made the vision go out because it was not yet time for it. Another winter. And once they said the Wanakia held out his hand to them and looked into it. When they did this, all but one saw the whole world, and all that was wonderful. And the good thunder himself told me that with the power of the Wanakia, he had gone to a bison skin teepee, and there his son, who had been dead a long time, was living with his wife. It's all gospel stuff here. And this was not like my great vision. You know, I just went working. This wasn't what I had seen. And then they held the first ghost dance. North of Pine Ridge, Cheyenne Creek. The people danced to a dance, had seen their dead relatives and talked to them. So they got themselves into a frenzy, into a state of, what would you call it?
Euphoria?
Trance. Got themselves into a trance. Well, I get you guys are all in trance now, you see. But maybe we'll get it around here and dance up the Great Spirit here and bring your ancestors back in the Cal State campus, maybe. Anyway, they'd seen their dead relatives and talked to them. Well, you can imagine the kind of word that would go around that this was happening. You know, it was wildfire this was. And the army was looking at all this stuff, including the Buffalo soldiers, the Black Osage, who were part of the army at that time. And they took part in this massacre, not just the white Osage. You know, it's not anyone's fault. That's just what happens in things like this when people get crazy and the other people get nervous, and then they have guns, and pretty soon they start going mad. So I didn't believe it yet. I still wanted to find out more, particularly since my father had just died. So I got on my horse and went to the ghost dance in Wounded Knee. He goes to the Wounded Knee where the big massacre is going to, below Manderson. And I was surprised. So much of my vision seemed to be in the dance. The dancers, both men and women, were holding hands in a big circle. And they had a tree painted red with its branches cut and some dead leaves. It was exactly like my vision, where the holy tree was dying. And the circle of the men and women holding hands were like the sacred hoop that should have the power to make the tree bloom again. And I saw that the sacred articles the people had offered were scarlet, as was in my vision. And it all seemed to me from my great vision. So what does he think? He thinks that this is his vision, that Wanakia has seen the same things he's seen. So he's really worked up now, isn't he? Because, you know, it's very infectious, you know. Then all at once, great happiness overcame me and took hold of me right there. And he remembered the work that he wanted to do in the sacred hoop. And that they might again walk the red road, which is the, you know, good road, the sacred road, the visionary road. I remembered the 6 grandfathers. And that through their power I should make my people live in the holy tree bloom. This is what I mean about the difference in this. Okay, he's depressed, isn't he? His people are depressed. But in a way, he's not as bitter as people like Malcolm X or James Baldwin in their own. You know, I think he's undergoing worse than those people. I know everyone had a bad time, but I think his time is actually worse. And yet he has a more positive, not positive towards the experience or positive towards the Wasichus, just a more positive spiritual attitude, I think. He thinks that he can do something to improve things, to make it better, to inspire the people, to give their back their hope, to make them whole again, and so on and so forth. I don't know if you see that, but that's why I love his spirit. I mean, in the end, he's depressed. Even in the end, he everything collapses, doesn't it? And everybody's killed, but still, he seems to have that you know, he still picks himself up, but he still has that something magical about his outlook. That's my view. I mean, I may be wrong. You don't have to agree with me. Everyone has to have their own view. That's what I think is the way to be a teacher to any people, whatever your people are, if there's hardship or not. That to me is how to move people properly. I mean, in a way that can help them, not make things worse. That's why I think Black Elk is pretty great. Now, it may not be Black Elk, it may be Nyhard, I don't know. Anyway, he's always hoping that the Spirit's going to come to us. I remembered how the Spirit had taken me to the center of the earth. And he was overcome. And when I went to dance, I went only to see and to learn, but now I was going to stay, and the dance was over for that day. But they would dance again the next day, and I would dance with them. He said, he's just going to dance. He's going to dance it up. And you know, in the last book we read, The Chosen, that's what all those groups do, those Jewish groups in Brooklyn. They dance. They're big, they dance to intoxication. And you know, in Islam, I can't write it on the board, the Sufis, S-U-F-I, S-U-F-I, with an S plural. The Sufis dance in mystic visions. You know, the Pope has gone to Turkey now. And there are places near Istanbul, out a little ways in Asia Minor, what's called Anatolia now, where they have this whirling dervishes. You ever heard of whirling dervish? Dervish is the Turkish word for Sufi. D-E-R-V-I-S-H. D-E-R-V-I-S-H. Dervish is the Turkish word for Sufi. And I don't know if you've ever seen them. Have you ever seen pictures of them? They sort of spin around like this. I'm no good at it. And they keep whirling and spinning and spinning and spinning for hours until they, you know, dislocate the whole universe and they go into what you were saying, a trance. How many have seen pictures of these groups? It's crazy, isn't it, to see them? I mean, they just like, and they have this crazy music going, that like otherworldly music, and they poetry, and they just dance and dance and dance. These mystic groups all have this, I think, across the Islamic world. I think they're outlawing them. People like Bin Laden don't like these groups. They don't like Sufis, don't like mysticism. They're very legal Islam. They want legal Islam, laws, you know, stopping people from dressing a certain way, or you know, cutting off people's hands if they're criminals, or stoning women if they're not behaving properly. You know, they want all this legal stuff. That's more what we have in Saudi Arabia, the Wahhabis, which is more of a legally restrictive form of Islam. But this Sufi is, don't mix it up, it's a totally different, it's a mystic sort of otherworldly form of Islam. And dancing is very big. So I think all these groups, I think they got it from Central Asia, Siberia. I think the American Indians came out of Central Asia down into the Pacific Northwest, down into, you know, the Rockies, South America, East, and so on. The dancing traditions of the medicine man, the great spirit world, came with them. I think the dancing traditions went into these Islamic areas and into the Jewish groups that came from those areas, who were called Hasidim. Hasid, H-A-S-S-I-D, H-A-S-S-I-D. And we'll look at them in the book, in the Chosen. We'll see a Rebbe, R-E-B-B-E. I'm not on the board. I don't have a pen. R-E-B-B-E. Their teacher is called a Rebbe, and they'll have the same spiritual leader as a lot of these other groups who are involved in some of them. Anyway, let's go back to the dance. He's going to dance. So I dressed myself, the next chapter, 184, in a sacred manner. Lawrence will have this about the Etruscans. Before the dance began, the dance began the next morning. What's going to happen the next morning? All hell is going to break loose, isn't it? And I think even Black Elk is going to try to kill somebody, isn't he? He's going to go back to his youthful days. He's going to he's going to ride at some troops, I think, or something. I don't know. Did you get to that part where he rides at the soldiers? I think he falls off his horse or something and doesn't manage to kill anybody or get himself too badly wounded either. But anyway, he does ride at the soldiers. And I went among the people who were standing around the withered tree. So he's part of it now. Good Thunder, one of the apostles, was a relative of my father, and he later married my mother. So I guess that his mother is young enough to have another husband. And he offered up a great prayer for me. Behold, this boy, your ways he will see. And I thought of my father and my brother and my sister who had left us. And there were tears running out of my eyes, and I cried with my whole heart. See, again, okay, he's bitter, but there's something positive in his bitterness. He's not hating anybody as such. He's just trying to make it better. Oh, he's a weakling. That's not the way to do it. Well, I'm not sure. That's something healthier way to do it for everybody. He's not a coward. He's not running away. He's going to fight if he has to. He's not, giving in, is he? It's a very strange sort of balance he has. Very unique, I think. And while I cried, I thought of my people in despair. You see, he wants to help. And I thought of my vision, and how it was promised me that my people would have a place on this earth where they would be happy. And they could be brought back into the hoop again and to do the good. And to the good road. And with tears on my face, I asked the Great Spirit to give a life and leaves and singing birds, as in my vision. I knew the power was in me. And as I danced with Good Thunder, kicking bare holy arms between them, I had the queer feeling I knew, and I seemed to be lifted clear off the ground. And I thought about the other world, that the Wanakee himself was with my people there, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's pretty good. You can read that. That's the climax of the book here, or maybe it's the conclusion. Then we began crying, and most of the people wailed and cried as they danced, and holding hands, and laughed with happiness, and some would fall down like they were dead, and while they were lying there like dead, they were having visions. And we kept on dancing and singing, and many were crying for the old way of living and the old religion, and I began to feel very queer, and a queer feeling came over my legs, and I must have fallen down. And I was floating head first, there he goes, he's taking off again, through the air. I'm sorry to bore you with all this. My arms were stretched out, and the eagle feather was in front of me. And then he's flying again. So you can read all that. Anyway, the holy shirts, I guess the ancestors come, I think, in those pages there, 188, 189. They wore holy shirts made and painted in a certain way. They came to me and said, it's not time to see your father. He is happy. You have work to do. He's always having people tell him that he needs to do. I knew it was their way, the holy shirts. I was out of the air, floating fast, and I fell back into my body again. And many were crowding around and asking my vision. So I guess isn't the day of the massacre yet. And I decided that I should use the ghost shirts I had seen. So again, yeah, he joins in by making ghost shirts for everybody. And next day I made ghost shirts all day long and painted them in the sacred manner. So he's making ghost shirts for his people. And I made the first goat shirt for Afraid of Hawk. And I made a sacred stick that I'd seen in my vision. And because of my vision and the power they knew I had, I was asked to lead the dance the next morning. And I had that same queer feeling. Okay, so you can read all about that. So his vision goes on to the end of the chapter. I wondered if the Wanakea, end of the chapter, might be the red man of my great vision. And then this next chapter then, I I guess it's still going on. And he told me he has another vision. He's dancing in bad trouble coming. I saw a flaming rainbow, like the first vision. And the flaming rainbow was to warn me, I thought, of something. Some other Indians he meets. Fire, thunder, red wound, and young American horse. I don't know what page this is in your book. With a message from the soldiers that this matter of the ghost dance must be looked into. And they were thinking of taking the dance away from us. And the next day, a policeman came to us and said, I was not sent here, but I came for your good to tell you what I've heard, that they're going to arrest you too. So he's like one of the leaders of this ghost dance, so he's in trouble now. So you can read all this. It's about this time that the bad news came to us from north. So everything would have been okay, except Sitting Bull is killed at this time. And you know Sitting Bull from the previous, so Sitting Bull, you see, this is page 191. Sitting Bull was from 1876, Battle of Little Bighorn, so this is 15 years Sitting Bull survives further. Went with Buffalo Bill to the Wild West shows, has come back. We heard some policemen from Standing Rock had gone to arrest Sitting Bull too. You see, they're arresting all the medicine men. Him, Sitting Bull. He's 27 years old, so he's still quite young. And then we heard that Sitting Bull was killed. I don't know if he tells the, and Bigfoot now, who is the leader of the Wounded Knee situation, that Wounded Knee is the leader now. I don't know, he doesn't tell how Sitting Bull was killed. So they went to arrest Sitting Bull, and he would not let them take him, so there was a fight and they killed him. So it was a similar thing to Crazy Horse. Sitting Bull was not making trouble. He was in his own, wherever he was living, cabin or wherever, and they went out to get him, and he wouldn't surrender, and he was killed. Bad time, as you see, still, 1890. And so they're blaming him for this trouble, this dancing, taking all the medicine men out. The same in the Apaches. So if you ever do a paper on this material, you can try to connect all these things. It'd be interesting for a paper if you're ever doing your history course. So here's where Black Elk joins the fight. On page, in chapter 24, I painted my face all red, and my hair I put one eagle feather on for the one above. I carried the sacred bow of the West. He's not going to kill a lot of people with his way of doing things. He's got the sacred bow of the West. And I came across a band of young men galloping after me. And they were going towards Pine Ridge. There were cavalrymen who were riding along the gulch and shooting into it. Because we could hear the guns going off and shooting, where the women and children were running away. It was after the outbreak had already occurred. We stopped back behind the ridge. I said to the others, take courage, these are our relatives, we will try to get them back. Then we all sang a song. He even knows the song. A thunder-being nation I am, I have said. A thunder-being nation I am. You shall live, you shall live, you shall live, you shall live. Take courage, it's time to fight. It's page 190. And the soldiers regarding our relatives shot at us and ran away. Some more cavalrymen on the other side of the gulch too, and I had no gun when we were charging. I just held my sacred bow out in front of me with my right hand. He's doing a Crazy Horse thing here. The bullets did not hit us at all. We found a little baby lying all alone at the head of the gulch. I could not pick her up just then, but I got her later. Some of my people adopted her. And I charged upon them holding the sacred bow. And we followed down along the dry gulch, and we saw was terrible. Dead and wounded women and children, little babes were scattered all along there where they had been trying to run away. The soldiers had followed along the gulch as they ran and murdered them in there. This is the last, this is the massacre of Wounded Knee. And when I saw this, I wish I had died too, but I was not sorry for the women and children. it was better for them to be happy in the other world, and I wanted to be there too. Who said that already in our work? Whitman. Remember in the Lilac class of Dorian Bloom, he said, the dead, they're not unhappy. It's the living who are thinking of them. They are the people who are unhappy. And that final scene he gives of the great battle flags and so on and so forth, of all the dead of the Civil War that he's talking about, that's the same sort of emotion you get here. I don't know if he's right, but that's the emotion. Before I went, I wanted my revenge. So he did do a charge, as you see. And there was a man called Yellowbird, and he and another man were standing in front of the teepee where Bigfoot was lying sick. And he wrestled with the officer and killed the officer. I don't know now who this Yellowbird is, but it was rumored among the Indians that Custer had a child by an Indian woman, and that child was called Yellowbird. Now, whether this is the same Yellowbird as Custer's illegitimate child by an Indian woman, I don't know. He doesn't talk about it here, but it's interesting to me that there is more than one person. I'm sure it could be called Yellowbird, but I'm just mentioning that to you. This Yellowbird kills an officer. Whether he's the same Yellowbird. So Dog Chief saw Yellowbird run into a teepee with his gun, and from there he killed soldiers until the teepee caught fire, and then he died full of bullets. So I think that is Custer's illegitimate son by an Indian woman that he supposedly had, which is why they say that they didn't scalp Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn. Everyone else was scalped and mutilated, but they left him because supposedly I think he had an Indian wife. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know. And what did they do to Custer? The only thing they did to Custer? They put holes in his ears so that he would hear better next time. The warnings that he'd been given, not to do the things he did and not to come back. Well, this is a crazy book, you'll have to agree. The last chapter is the end of a dream. I don't really need to do much more with you with this. He tells, I guess he didn't get anything happen to him, did he? You're the one reading this book, right? So the next page of that last chapter, he talks about wishing the bullet had killed me, then I could have died with pop in my mouth. I don't know, you'd have to read this more carefully. The day before, I take only my sacred bow, which was not made to shoot, because I was a little in doubt about the Wanakia religion at the time, and didn't want to kill anybody. I don't know what he's going to do in this last chapter here. I guess this time, I don't know if he took a gun or he didn't. I guess he did take a gun this time. This is the next day. And he's still dreaming. I don't have your page here. He's dreaming about geese soaring in the sky. Yeah, I remember my great vision, the part where the geese in the north appeared, and stretching out my arms with my gun. Yeah, he's got a gun in my right hand, like a goose soaring when it flies low, to turn in the change of the weather. I made the sound the geese make. Whoop, whoop. It's lovely, this fellow. You got to admit, I don't know if it's all true. And whoop! What page is that? You got the page. What page is it in your book? 204. 204. I write that down. Yeah, I got 204. I got it. And the soldiers saw him, began shooting fast at me. I guess I charged at that moment like a goose. And they started shooting at him. I kept right on with my buckskin running, shot in the faces when I was near, then swung wide and rode back up the hill. All this time the bullets were buzzing around me and I wasn't even touched. I was not even afraid. It was like being in a dream about shooting. He doesn't know the difference between the dream and vision world himself. And I dropped my arms and quit making the goose cry because I suddenly got afraid. And then someone had hit me there with the back of an axe. I nearly fell out of my saddle. Oh no, I felt something like the back of an axe. He was then wounded when he stopped doing his goose cry. He should have kept on doing his goose cry, wouldn't have been wounded. And I'll show you where the bullet struck me sideways across the belly, and I saw a long, deep scar on his abdomen. But you see, now I was crazy to kill, and I said to the protector, help me on my horse, let me over there. It's a good day to die, so I'm going to go over there. And the Lakotas were fighting, and I heard that. After that I left, the Black Wasichu soldiers came. There it is, the Black Wasichu's coming. So they're in this too, you guys. Everyone, we're all in it together, see? Nobody's free of this. And the Lakotas had to retreat. Actually, the Black Wasichu seemed to turn the tide here. Those are the buffalo soldiers that are sometimes named like that. Well, I guess you can read the rest of it yourself, huh? Well, not much left, is there? This was wounded in the knee, and I wanted a chance to kill the soldiers. The war cavalry were coming up the river. So I caught up a soldier's horse. I was dragging a rope and brought it to Red Willow while the soldiers were shooting fast at me. And just then, for a little while, I was a Wanakia myself. So in this fight, Longbeard and other men whose names I've forgotten were badly wounded, but I became a Wanakia, you see. Our party still wanted to go out and fight anywhere, but Red Cloud made a speech to us, something like, brothers, this is a hard winter. Red Cloud is still around and helping. And so we must make peace, and I'll see that nobody is hurt by the soldiers. And the people agreed that this had to be, so we broke camp, and many Lakotas were already there, and there were many soldiers, and we stood in two lines with their guns held in front of them as we went through to where we camped. And so it was all over. And I did not know how much had ended. When I looked back from this high hill, 207, at my old age, I could still see the butchered women and children lying heaped and scattered all along the crooked gulch, as plain as when I saw them when my eyes were young. And I can see that something else died in that bloody mud and was buried in the blizzard. A people's dream died there. It was a beautiful dream. And I, to whom so great a vision was given in my youth, you see me now, a pitiful old man who has done nothing. For the nation's hoop is broken, still, and scattered, and there is no center any longer, and the sacred tree is dead. I like that book. Not bad, huh? Well, as Muhammad said about the Quran, write a better one if you can. Write another line like it. That's how he challenged his opponents. If you don't think I'm a prophet, he said in one of his surahs, write another surah like it, but you can never do it, he said. And this is Surah 2 of the Quran, if you've ever read it. Well, I don't know. What do you think? Any reaction to this? Want to say anything? I've now read the whole book, do you? What about it? Any last comments? Do you think that's interesting literature? Yeah? Yeah, that's pretty, I mean, yeah.
Particularly the interaction between, when he was forced into a different culture, probably more interesting than the beginning parts of it.
Yeah, well, he's got to, it's a book. Yeah. Yeah, it grows. The book grows. I mean, it's full of, that's what great books are. They have a lot of sort of boring parts. And then suddenly they come to that's where you have to read the whole thing. You can't give handouts with little passages from books. Don't ever do that to your students, and that's why I like you to read whole books, yeah.
I was going to say, if you just think about like the spiritual aspects of it, and just not even in this one, but in the other two that we read, with Bhagavad Gita and the first one.
Yeah, Don Juan.
Yeah. It just makes you question the things that they see and the visions that they have, and you wonder, like, well, could it be possible? It's in so many different places it says that, oh, these people saw it. So you just kind of question it.
Oh, well, I never believe any scripture of any kind. You know that. I don't believe the New Testament. I don't believe the Koran. I don't believe any of these things.
Yeah, but instead of the scientific way, which we're used to.
But no, I mean, look, sure, you're going to question whether people really saw things or they didn't. That's certainly true. You're not seeing them, and they are. But you can't question that they think they're seeing them. That's the only thing that I would respond to. That's their vision. He thinks he's seeing something. I believe he charged the cavalry like a goose. I believe that was his state of mind, and I believe he went, whoop, whoop, whoop. I'm sure he did that. And wouldn't do that if you weren't in the throes of some kind of, that you thought you were a visionary experience. And he always says that a queer feeling came over me. Now, do I believe he's really seeing visions for us? For me, no, I don't really think so, but it doesn't matter to me. The fact that he's expressing this and sharing it with us, to me, is a beautiful experience, because life is short, and you don't see many beautiful things in life. So it's nice to have someone share his beautiful things with you. So that's something I would say. That doesn't mean that I believe it's going to happen to me, or that that's the explanation of all life. I'm not a preacher, so I don't have any explanations of life to give you. That's why all I can do is share these books with you and hope that you enjoy them too. But that's all I can tell. I don't know if there's something, some truth that you're supposed to get out of this. I don't know about that. What about anyone else want to comment on these blackout speaks? I took a lot of time over it. I will put it on the final, of course. So let's have a 10-minute break now, and then we'll move over to another great visionary, English visionary, G.H. Norris. Now, his visions are full of sex and other things like that, so you should be able to respond better to that. Your exams are here, and I can't explain them because she didn't give me any explanation, and she's not here to explain anything. And I don't even have her phone number. And I can't put her over my knee and spank her either. She knows I have no power. Yeah, that's right.